Good afternoon and welcome to Digital Thursday. My name is Heather Hickey and I'm joining you here from the technology program team. And with me is my partner, Sarah Roche.
Hello.
And Andy Queechin. So they will be answering your questions if you have any. You can click on the link to the shared document that we provided for you and ask questions or give us some feedback. Also, you can use the hashtag DPChats if you're using Twitter or Yammer. So I can see some people just signing in, so we're just going to give them just a minute while we get started. And in the meantime, I'm just going to go ahead and switch over to a screen share for you. So thank you all for joining us today. I just want to show you on this sheet that we provided for you. If you scroll down to the very bottom here, there's two things I just want to point out. You'll see there's a link to an exit ticket. So if you could spend about 2 or 3 minutes at the end of the session, there's just quick little, 3 little questions for feedback. And there's also a link here. This session will remain posted to YouTube after we are finished. So don't worry about if we're going a little bit quick. You can always come back and rewatch it. So my suggestion is to watch along and find one of the tools that interests you. And then you can always revisit that video when you're ready to learn more tools. Okay, and we'll get started here. So today we are going to be taking a look at student collaboration through digital platforms. And we continue to examine the skills and attributes of today's learners. And with all the 21st century skills that we are trying to embed into our learners, we are focusing today on the idea of collaboration. I also just want to point out the connects into the Catholic Graduate Expectations. So it links very nicely with the building collaborative contributors and also building effective communicators. So today we're going to start by looking at the tool Padlet. Some of you may be familiar with this tool and it may be new to some of you. So hopefully if you have seen it before, we'll be able to give you some new and different ideas and strategies on how you might use it. If you're brand new to Padlet, essentially it's a virtual wall or bulletin board that allows students to be able to communicate and express their thoughts. It works basically like a big sheet of chart paper or bulletin board that you would stick sticky notes on. The difference being that now we can add in digital elements. So not only can students put text onto a sticky, but now they can also put images, videos, links to some of their documents, or anything that can be generated through a link. So what I'm going to do is actually take you to Padlet and show you what that looks like. So the great thing about Padlet is it is a web-based tool, which means that it can be used on multiple types of devices, whether it's iPads or if students are bringing in their own device. And the teacher will need to create an account the first time that you come to Padlet.com. The students do not need to create an account. So you'll notice here I have created an account and logged in, and it takes you right into what they call their dashboard or their homepage. And you'll see right down the middle here, it actually saves all of my Padlets or big chart papers with sticky notes all over them, which is really great because you can come back at a future time with students to kind of re-examine. So for instance, if you were using this to generate some questions for an inquiry, you might choose to come back and revisit those at a later time. So I'm just going to start by showing you how to create a new Padlet. So up in the top right-hand corner, I'm going to click New Padlet. And you'll see that it just automatically creates this blank Padlet space. So to interact on that Padlet space or to add a sticky, all the students will need to do is double-click, and they'll end up with this little blank sticky. So it does provide an option for a title. What I usually like to do is have the students just put their first name or initials, and then they can add any text that like into the space below that. That helps me identify who's posting what onto the board. You'll also notice as I hover here, an option comes up to add an attachment. And when I click that, it's actually going to give us 3 different options. So in the first option, it allows you to add links. So this kind of opens up endless things that you can attach to your Padlet. If your students are familiar with using Microsoft Office 365 already, they can actually generate a link from one of their documents if they type something in Word or in PowerPoint. And we'll be showing you how to go there. But I'm also going to show you how I can just simply take an image. So what I did is I just opened up another window and Googled Canada flag. I'm just going to click on one of these. And you'll notice that you have an option to view image. And what I'm going to do is right click and come down where it says copy image address. And then what I'm going to do is come back, back to the Padlet board and just right click again and paste that in and say submit. And what it's going to do is generate a preview of that image. And once it does that, to make sure that I've put in the right link, if it's going to cooperate. Sorry about that. Let's try that again. There we go. And then I can just say okay, and it automatically posts to the board. So you can see some of the potential to be able to have students go find some information or images. The other options to upload is if you have something saved to your device. So if you're on a tablet, perhaps they've taken a picture right on the device, or if you're on a computer, perhaps you have a specific file. You're just going to say choose file, and you're just going to go ahead and choose. I've saved that picture onto my files here as well. And what it'll do is upload it as well. So that could be a photo, but it also could be a Word document or something like that. And lastly, that last option, you'll notice where it says take photo. So if you're actually using a tablet, like an iPad or one of the Dell tablets, you could specifically take a picture and load it directly right into your Padlet. So those are the 3 ways that you can add a sticky with some multimedia onto your board. So what I'm going to do now is just show you how you can manipulate this board. So if you look on the right-hand side, you have a taskbar here. And I'm going to go to this wheel here that says modify this Padlet. When I click that, it generates a second sub-taskbar. So the first thing that it asks for is a title. So if you're titling your Padlet for something, or perhaps you are posing a question to your students, you can click one of these photos, and if you notice beside the title, it just kind of makes it fancy. So if you are creative, you can go ahead and choose something like that. You can also have no image, or if you choose add, you can select your own image. Next, when I come back to this sub-taskbar, you'll notice there's an icon that says wallpaper. And by choosing or clicking on any of these, you'll notice that the background or wallpaper of this changes. So depending on how you like it to look. And again, you also have the option to add your own. Just want to show you for a second what that would look like if I do add my own. So I'm going to upload one that I saved. So I just Googled a Venn diagram and took a screenshot of it so I would have a photo. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and set that as my wallpaper. So now you can actually use this to have graphic organizers there. And you can go ahead and click and manipulate posts that your students have. I can even title these. Sure, just giving an example, but if you wanted to put a title on the top of your Padlet, on your Venn diagrams here, depending again what you're using it for, but just showing you that that option exists under modify and wallpaper if you wanted to add your own. So just a different way to kind of use that. But again, you could just stick with a very plain background for many of the purposes. So right underneath wallpaper, you're going to notice where it says layout. So you have 3 choices for layout. It currently is in what we call free form, and that's what's going to allow you to manipulate and move these posts around. It also has what we call stream, which will put those in a order that you can just scroll up and down through. And you also have the option for grid, which is going to maximize the display of the posts. So again, depending on the use, you'll choose one of the layout forms. Next, here you have the choice for privacy. So you'll notice that you have some choices to have private, but that requires people to log in via an email. And because this is a third-party website, I don't like to have my students give that private information. So what I like to select is the one called Hidden Link. And basically that means anyone I provide this link to has access to the Padlet. Totally public would make it searchable, which I'm not going to choose that for my purposes. And you'll also notice down at the very bottom that there's an option to moderate posts. By clicking that button, what that means is as students submit their stickies to the Padlet board, that the teacher would actually view that first and have to approve it before it's posted. So if you're just starting to work with digital collaborative spaces with your students and you're not quite sure if they have their digital citizenship minds on yet, that might be a good moment to choose that option, but you'll need to decide that depending on your students. I'm also moving down this sub-task bar. You have an option for notifications. So some teachers create Padlet boards that the students access from home for a homework piece. And if you wanted to be notified by email that a student has added something to that board, you could select that. And once a day, they'll send you a summary of who's added to the board. So if it's an ongoing collection of information, you might choose that. And right underneath there where it says address, this is where it's going to generate the link for you. So this is where you can copy and paste that to give out to your students. So you can either physically write it and have students copy it down, or you can paste it into a shared document in Microsoft Word Office 365 if you're familiar with how to do that. You also have the option underneath here to copy your board. So some teachers like to perhaps have small groups working on boards, and they might want to have 4 or 5 of the same board they've created. So you can choose to copy with your posts or without your posts. Obviously, copying without your posts would just create the shell that you've created with your templates and your backgrounds and titles. Copying with posts comes in handy if you want to perhaps save that board and reuse it. So for example, some teachers will have a Padlet board to post their daily homework, and they want to have that board accessible by the same link without having to change the link over and over. So I could copy this with posts to save a copy for myself, and the students then would still be accessing that board where I could delete the posts. And that's your next option in your sub-task bar. If you click there, I can just go ahead and clear those posts. You also have the option to delete from there as well. So what I'd like to do is show you a couple of examples. And just before I do that, I just want to point out, if you notice there is a share button here on the main taskbar. When I click that, you have a QR code here that's generated. So if you're using mobile devices that have a QR scanner like the iPads, you could simply open that up and have your students scan this, and it would take them right into the Padlet board without needing to type in that link. So when I come back up to the very top here, you're going to notice it's going to take me back to my dashboard, my home page. So what I've done is created some examples of how you might be able to use that in your classroom. So I'm just going to show you a few of these. So if you look at this first one, and what I can do, this is exactly what it would look like if students submitted images and stickies. If I click on that once, it's going to kind of zoom in on that. So this is an example of how this would have been used in a junior intermediate room. The teacher posed the different parables of Jesus, and the students would go to make a short little summary and find an image they thought represented that parable. I've seen it used as well for book reviews. So depending if they're, if you're reading different books and the students want to kind of recommend or do a book review for that, And you can see some of them have added in images there. Also, we have for Earth Day, an environmental pledge where the students scanned into a Padlet in the library and were able to pledge what they would do for their environment. I also really enjoyed this one, the idea of co-creating success criteria. So this was a lesson during an inquiry on effective search engines, and the students had to comment on what they thought made a good search engine for their research. And then the teacher was kind of organizing these to co-create some success criteria. And some shared writing pieces here. This is the primary one. So again, you can see an opportunity for the student or the teacher to do some shared writing. So they were going to submit something. I think it was just simply tell us something you like. And then the teacher was using it as an opportunity to do some shared writing. There's just endless possibilities. So we're looking at, you could put a persuasive writing prompt there. You could create storyboards with your primary students. You could have I Wonder wall, maybe before a field trip or a specific event. You could use this to post assignments or homework. You could have students logged into a Padlet while other students are giving presentations and give peer feedback during that presentation. You could have a wall of honor, perhaps Remembrance Day or at different times for different reasons. You could also collaborate with another class, whether that's a classroom in your school or if you connect with another classroom, perhaps at another school, and you would like to collaboratively share your ideas or your wonderings. You can also let students showcase their work. So because they can put links to assignments in there, it could be showcased and students could go in and kind of recommend or read. And also a great place for student reflections. So many uses for Padlet in the classroom. I found many of these uses by simply Googling that. So if you're stuck for an idea, you can always Google ideas for Padlet in your classroom and you'll get tons of ideas here. And most of these are ones we just spoke of. And that is the brief summary of Padlet. So I'm just going to come back out here. So hopefully you got an idea there that will help you get started with perhaps trying out Padlet in your classroom. It's a great way for when you're just beginning to do digital collaboration because it's fairly easy to kind of get students into, and not having to create accounts is really a benefit too. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead now and share this short video with you on student collaboration.
The teacher doesn't just throw control to the students and say, let me know what you figure out. She really has to plan ahead of time. She has to figure out how to group the students so that they're the most productive. She has to scaffold their work. So she provides hints or clues or templates, worksheets if necessary, to kind of show them what they need to do first, what they might consider doing next, just to teach them how to work together. You know, teamwork is not something that comes naturally, especially for younger students. They really need to learn how to do that.
So we would have a anchor or a set of expectations about what kind of language would be used, what the roles and responsibilities are for each person in that group, and what are the processes for asking further questions or clarification.
So you serve one trail mix and give out stickers. I do two trail mixes. Brent does the questions, and then I do the other stickers.
So when students are working on projects in different groups, it's difficult to get to all of them at once, and they may really need you. So my first strategy for that is teaching a child how to use each other, teaching them how to talk to one another. And so here we call it accountable talk. So what are ways that you talk with each other when you disagree? How do you do that in a respectful manner to continue to collaborate with each other and keep the project moving? Also, I do a lot of tabletop directions. If I have short directions that they need to get through, or a checklist, or an agenda, they have to get through so many things by the end of the day or the end of the week, instead of raising their hand and asking me and I have to run back and forth, it's right there in front of them.
So it's really the art of facilitation. the teacher would not be at the front of the room directing instruction, but instead she is choreographing instruction. So she's like a conductor, and she would go to all the different tables and groups to ensure that each group is working in harmony to achieve that goal at the end.
Okay, so as they're referring to in the video, the idea of collaboration in general, we really want to make sure that those skills are taught in class before we move to a digital platform. So like in the video, they were referring to the idea of accountable talk. So working on those skills with your students before you move to the digital platform will only help enhance that experience. And then they'll be able to use those multimedia platforms to redefine that experience. So some of the things we need to consider when taking students into those digital collaboration platforms. First is the idea of digital citizenship. So we want to make sure that we're having those conversations with our students. Also the idea of defining the workspace. So we'll take a look at some different options for that. When we kind of set the tone and purpose for those spaces, the students are going to be more purposeful with them. So whether it's to be used for knowledge sharing, peer feedback, reflective practice, goal setting, questions and wonderings, etc. And we also want to have the conversation about creating that digital footprint. So knowing that the expectations that when they post something on a web platform, that will remain there regardless of whether they delete that or not. So the idea of building that respectful space. So I just wanted to come back to the idea of digital citizenship. If you haven't seen this resource, it is a website called osapac.ca. It is a ministry site, and they've taken digital citizenship into 4 different categories. So they're looking at the ideas of critical thinking, credit and creation, communication, and protection. So I'm just going to go ahead and take you to that site for a moment. Yep, sorry. So when you log in, you're going to notice at the very top there's some options, and one of those is projects, and under projects is digital citizenship. And those are the 4 categories we were just referring to. The idea is that you would embed these into lessons that you're already doing, not likely something you would teach in isolation. It does link really nicely into inquiry. So if you're working on any inquiries, a great place to have those conversations. So when we're looking at critical thinking, we're looking at different search strategies. We're looking at how do we vet online resources? How do we critically evaluate information? The idea of credit and creation is being able to find information online and use it without breaking copyright or plagiarizing. And I know that's always a struggle with the students. We're also looking at the idea of presence and communication. So as we move into those digital collaboration spaces, how do we communicate appropriately, and who is our audience, and how do we contribute positively? Sometimes that's giving them sentence starters or stems to use as well. And I just want to point out to you, as you scroll down, you're going to notice that it has the divisions labeled here. And if I click on one of those, and then underneath that, resources, you'll notice that there is a variety of videos and lessons and multimedia interactive tools here that can help you have those conversations with your students and build capacity around digital citizenship. So just a useful site if you're looking for some of those resources. Okay, and we're going to now take a look at Office 365. So within this program, we're going to show you how you can create some collaborative group space and share files with those students, and have the students simultaneously working in one of the programs like Word, PowerPoint, or Excel. So just as a reminder, if you're not sure how to get into Office 365, you're going to just have them type DP Cloud in the web browser if they're at school. If they're from home, they'll type dpcloud.dpcdbsb.org. And that is for teachers and students. And your login remains the same as it is now for you to log into school computers or your staff email. And again, just to remind you, you do have a secondary email address in there as well, as do your students. So for students, it's their first name dot last name at student.dpcdbsb.org. And teachers, your secondary email is the same, first dot last at staff.dpcdbsb.org. And we'll show you how to find your way in there momentarily. So now we're going to go ahead and take a look at groups. And when we log into Office 365, we're going to be looking for this icon that says People. So I'm going to go ahead and take you there now. And I have that bookmarked, which you probably will want to do if you're using your own device. So once I log in here, the teachers and students will see the same homepage here with all of the icons. And again, we're going to be coming down to where it says People. So I'm going to go ahead and click in here. So by creating a group, you're creating a nice collaborative space. You'll see down the left, I have various groups going on. So first I'm going to show you how to create that group, and then I'll show you what you can do within it. So you'll notice here there's a little plus sign beside the word new. So that's where we're going to go to create a new group. Once I click that on the right hand side, you'll notice it's going to ask me to choose a group name. As I do that, you're going to notice the first thing that it came up, it says it's not available. And that's because I've already created a group with that name. And it wants you to create a unique name different from anyone else in Dufferin Peel so that those don't get mixed up. So you're just going to have to come up with a name until it tells you it's available. You can add a description to this. You may at different times have purposes for different size groups. So by adding a description will help you sort through what you've created the group for. And directly underneath that is a little button here that says Privacy. It is set to default by public, and by public, that's going to be anyone in Dufferin Peel can see what's in this group. I would prefer to choose private if this is just for my class members, and then it will only be who I choose to put into this group that would have access to it. So once I have gone ahead and selected those, I'm going to come back up to the top where it says Create, and it's going to go ahead and generate that group. And then it's going to ask me, who do I want in the group to add those members? So you have two options here. You can start typing names, whether it's staff or students. I'm going to go ahead and type Sarah's name here. And because I've added her before, her name comes up pretty quickly. Oops. And then I can just click on it and you'll see she's added into the group. You can also use the student numbers, which you can get generated from your office or admin. The reason student numbers seem to work a little bit more efficiently is it's able to search the database faster, but it also prevents, if there happens to be two students in Dufferin Peel with the exact name, sometimes that can get confusing. So I recommend if you can get your student numbers just to add them that way. Once you've added these students in the first time, then your group's created and you won't have to go through adding them every single time. So it's only that initial first time that it takes to go ahead and add all those numbers in. Once you're satisfied, you're going to say Add at the top here, and it's going to go ahead and put those people in your group. You can later add more people or take people out of your group. What you can't change is whether it's public or private or the name of your group. So you want to make sure that you make those choices up front. And you're going to see it just generates this space here now for this group. And I'm actually going to take you into one of my groups that has some things in it. So if you notice here, I'm going to click on this group. I've gone ahead and created this group here. I've added an image, and you can do that if you wish just by clicking there, and it'll ask you to upload one. So the first thing you're going to notice is that there's a conversation feed here. So I can actually type to my students or leave instructions for the students. So I can use this to post homework or update them on dates or things like that. You'll notice here that there's a calendar feature. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that for a moment. So you can actually attach a calendar here, and you can see I've added a homework thing here and pizza day. If you just double tap on here, it's going to ask you add something in there. Whoops. And you can choose to have all of these features here as well. I like to turn the reminder off. You can choose. That will just send you an email to notify you if you want that to happen. You'll notice that there's some options here at the top, and one of those is categorize. So you might choose to have all of your homeworks in the same color or something like that and save, and then it will go ahead and add it onto the calendar. So a great way to have a digital calendar for your students. And if I come back over here to conversations, you'll notice that it will update. When I've updated my calendar, it will also put it in the news feed here. So you can see if I click on other things, I've added a Padlet link for homework one night. So we were talking about, while we were in Padlet, how do we share that with the students? So I can simply paste it in here, and then the students can just come into their group and click on it instead of having to type in that long link. You can share files with them, and we'll show you how to do that. I've also just posted some homework directly here. So I've asked them to please read the article on responsibility, which I've just attached as a Microsoft Word file, and then to click on the Padlet and answer the questions. So once they do that, they could click directly on there, and it would take them back to Padlet, where I've posed a question, what are your responsibilities at home and school? And the students could come back and join us there. So you'll also notice there's a little option at the top here for files. So I'm going to go ahead and click that just to show you. So if I just directly wanted to upload different files here, so that could be anything from an assignment to a rubric, and I simply would choose the upload button here, and then it would ask me where I want to choose that file off of my computer. You'll also see that there's a button that says new. So if you wanted to just simply put in a document, if I clicked Microsoft Word, I could just, it would automatically put it into this group, and I could put some instructions in there as well. So I'm going to come back out the groups for a moment, just so you can see what that looks like. So a nice way to organize some information or in a collaboration space with your students. You'll also notice that there's an option here for a notebook. So if I click on that, it's going to open up Microsoft OneNote. This isn't a class notebook, which we'll be covering in a different time. This is just simply a notebook. So you could choose to post things in here as well. You'll notice that it automatically generates it. It names it whatever your group was as well. So this operates very much like a binder. So in this first column would be the tabs of your binder, and then the next column here to your right would be all the pages within that tab. So let's say I have the homework tab here. And when I click on that, you'll notice I've put some things in here already. So I've got a page on just showing you how the same thing, the responsibility. So I could put the link to that article. The students would be able to click and directly read that. And then again, the link to the Padlet to answer the questions. And again, you can have as many pages or tabs for different areas within here as you want. And it operates very much like Word. If you want to insert a picture or a file or a link or a table, you can do all of those things just like you would do in Word. That would help you generate that. So you'll notice that it still has my group here at the top, because this is accessible only to my group for my students. So they would be able to click in here, and I could give them instructions as to come into homework You could simply just keep adding pages with the dates if you wanted to have the date as your homework, to have students refer to it that way as well. So I'm going to come back up to the top here where it says the name of my group and click that, and it'll actually take me back out to where my groups are. And again, back to my groups, and I have all of my options here at the top, the conversation thread. And again, your calendar, files, and notebook. On the right-hand side, you'll notice at this moment, I just have one member in here, but if I click there, this is where I can go ahead and add more members in. So if you have students that come later or you skipped a student for whatever reason, you'll notice as well that there's one that says admins. So I'm the admin because I've created that group, but I could add other administrators, let's say other teachers or whoever I wanted to be able to make changes to the overall group would go there. If they're just members, they can interact, but they won't be able to make those changes for the group. So a quick way to build a quick little space for your students if they're just getting started with Microsoft Office. So I'm just going to come back here now and take you over to now Microsoft Word Online. Now that we've created that group with our students, it's really easy to create things in Microsoft Word Online and share that with my group. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what that would look like. Whenever you're logged into Office 365 and you're trying to get back to your home screen, if you look in the top left-hand corner, there's a little waffle icon. When you click that, it's going to generate all of the options. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Word Online. And if you're familiar with Word already, you could choose one of the pre-made templates, or you can also choose the new blank document. So if I double click on there, it's going to just open up a blank Word document. By default, it's going to name it for you at the top here in the center. So if you just go ahead and click in there, and rename that document to be whatever you like. You'll notice underneath that there's an option where it says Open in Word. If you have Word installed on your computer, and you wanted to operate on that platform versus the online platform, you could click that and open it up. The only benefit to doing that is if you are doing a lot of editing or trying to manipulate things, it sometimes is easier when you take it off of the online version. It has some more added features. But for generally speaking, the online version is sufficient enough to do what we want. So again, you have all these options to insert. Often what I'll do, as we have done with you today in our collaborative document, is just, oops, go ahead and, oh, hold on, not cooperating. Let me just try that again. I think as I tried to open it there, it got stuck in between. So if I come to insert and table, I often will just put in a single table here. And kind of as we talked about defining the workspace for students, this way it prevents them from typing over top of each other. So they can just choose an empty box. Sometimes I will ask them to start with their name, like we have with you, to identify who they are as they're speaking. I also want to show you, when you come back up to insert, you're going to notice there's a choice here to put in a comment. So if I click that, you're going to notice right away on the right-hand side, a little comment box came up. I can actually leave a comment for that student. And when I close that, you'll notice that their little icon appears wherever beside the cursor. So if I put the cursor here and said comment, and post that there, you'll notice now that little icon. So that's helpful if I want to give a little feedback to the student, and they can go ahead and click there and they will see that. And they can actually respond to that comment as well. we can have a little side dialogue going on depending on what information they've given us. So great way to interact and give a little descriptive feedback to your students. I'm just going to go ahead and close that. In the top right-hand corner, you'll notice that there's an icon here where it says share. So if I wanted to share that out, I'm going to click that button. And it's going to ask me who I want to share this with. So you can share individually with anyone in Dufferin Peel simply by typing their name, like we did before, and selecting them, or their student number, employee number. But if it's something you wanted to share with your entire class and you've already created that group, like we walked you through, I can actually just type in the name of my group, and it's going to go ahead and generate that. To the right, it's going to give you two options, can edit or can view. So if you're using this as a collaborative document like you are today, you're going to have to give them the option to edit so that they can actually manipulate and type into that document. If it was just something you wanted to share, like an assignment or a rubric or an article for them to read, you could choose the view only button. So I'm going to leave that as can edit, and then I'm going to say share. And now the students in that group all have access to this document. So the question is, where will they find that document? So I'm going to come back up to the top left-hand corner where the waffle is here. And there's a couple of options. So one, they can come back into the group. And any groups they're in will be listed here on the left, and they can click the group. They can click files, and it's going to open up, and the files would be here. And of course, I didn't name that one. The other option is under that waffle, you're going to see this icon called OneDrive. So that is the cloud storage space. So when they click there, you'll notice on the left-hand side, the groups are also listed here. So if they clicked there, they would see that file, but they will also see it here where it says shared with me. So when I click that, any files that have been shared with me from somebody else, I will find listed here. So there's a couple of ways to get to the same option. And I'm just going to show you as well, when I go back to that little waffle icon, there's also the option here for PowerPoint Online. So I'm just going to open one that we've used before. And again, we talked about the idea of setting a platform or defining the space for students. So I'm just going to come up. You'll notice here it says Edit Presentation. And I'm going to come to PowerPoint Online to stay on the online version. And if you're familiar with PowerPoint, you know you can have multiple slides. So this was used, the students were working on an inquiry and they had some research time. So what we did is we just assigned each group a particular slide to help them define that space. And we posed the question to share 2 facts they'd learned today from their research, a question they still had, and one of the websites that they found useful while researching. So a great way to have kind of that documentation of the inquiry process and that journey. We're always looking for ways to kind of document that process. And again, on the top here, you'll notice that little comment bubble. And if I click that, we have some comments here on the right. Just like I showed you in Word, you would say insert and add a comment, and you could go ahead and leave comments there. And again, in the top right-hand corner, you have that share button. So just like in Microsoft Word, you could click that, share it with your entire group or individuals, and now have this as a collaborative space. So we've had success with an entire class manipulating in the PowerPoint all at the same time. It is helpful if you have those slides set up in advance so that they know they're going, this group's going to slide 3 or the student's going to slide 5 to help them so that they're not kind of typing on top of each other. But it definitely is a teachable moment where you're going to want to create some success criteria with your students of how do you share and interact on a collaborative digital space. So the idea of, you know, respecting others' work and not deleting it and kind of finding their space. I'm just going to come back down here now with this for a moment. And I just want to share with you this quick video about the voice of our active learners.
Do you recognize me? Very soon I will be your student. But I will not always sit in your classroom. I will not take out a pencil or open a textbook. You grew up with books. I read from a laptop, an iPad, a smartphone. I use the keyboard more than a pen. I'm a digital native, an active learner. Why carry just a textbook when my iPad connects me to the world? I want to know things all the time, and right away. Maybe the best price for cool shoes, or where to hike the Himalayas. To learn, I look online, because the classroom isn't enough for me. Not when I can see faces, hear voices, and chat with people on the other side of the world. I want to learn about Chinese history from someone in Beijing. My school has to keep up with me, not the other way around. I have more and more choices. When you were my age, no one had heard of a charter school. No one could imagine a virtual school. But it's projected that by 2019, half of all high school courses will take place online. I use mobile devices to connect with friends, classmates, and teachers. And when I'm more connected, I'm more interested. I don't buy music at a store, or movies or books. I get them instantly online. And when they excite me, I share with friends. That's how I want my education to be. I need a degree even more than my parents. I know it, and so do my friends. But will I be prepared? Public grade schools are under huge budget pressures, and traditional college is increasingly unaffordable. I don't want crushing debt. If I can Google the best choice for cool shoes, rest assured I'll find the best choice of education, like 2-year institutions and online courses, where students like me have grown to be 6 million strong. And when I'm older, I want to keep learning. Do you recognize me? Very soon, I will be changing the world. But I need you. If you're ready to help me, I'll find you. But it's your challenge to keep up with me. I'm a digital native, an active learner. Listen to me. Help me. Together, we can create the future.
Okay, so I'm just going to come back here to join you just for a moment. So thank you so much for joining us today on Digital Thursday and examining some different ways you can get started collaborating digitally with your students. Again, I know we showed you multiple things, so you have the link to the video where it will be saved. So you can always come back and rewatch it when you're ready to add on some different features. And we would really appreciate it if you'd take just 2 or 3 minutes to click the link to the exit ticket and give us a little feedback. That'll definitely help us plan our sessions for the future. Thank you so much and have a great Thursday.